Hi, I'm Dr. Emma from Simple Physical Literacy. Today we're talking about physical literacy for early years or preschool students, age 3 and 4-year-olds. We've talked before about school readiness and how to get children ready to be able to cope with the school day, physically, emotionally, academically. So, what should this age group be able to do? What is going to help them to be good at coping in a school classroom? Well, we know that in Ireland, first of all, 99.5% of Irish children do not meet their developmental goals. So when we look at this list of what children should be able to do, most children aren't meeting their goals. And let's really try to help them reach their goals by making them more physical. Children often aren't school ready because they spend too much time sitting, not enough time moving around, so not enough time developing their physical skills so that they're able to cope with the day, physically, emotionally, academically, everything. Because a child who moves more will be better academically. All of the research says that now. So let's have a look at what a child in early years or preschool years should be able to do. For balancing, a child of 3 or 4 should be able to balance on 2 feet without swaying, with their eyes open and with their eyes closed. Balancing on 1 foot for 5 seconds. For walking, they should walk in a heel-to-toe manner. They can walk up and down steps 1 foot at a time. So it's, like this, instead of as a younger child, they'd go up, up. So we're looking for a child to go up, up, up with 1 foot at a time. They should walk backwards. They should be able to walk on a balance beam. So then when they're running, they should be able to run with an even stride, that they can turn, they can stop suddenly, they can run around objects, and that their arms are bent and they run with this cross pattern or cross the midline motion. When they're jumping, a child of this age should be able to jump off a step with 2 feet. They should be able to jump over an object leading with 1 foot, like over a tree trunk leading with 1 foot. And in it's called standing broad jump, standing from the spot and just leaping with 2 feet, 25 centimetres. A child of this age should be able to jump. They're starting to hop. They can hop initially once or twice on their preferred leg, up to, when they're at the latter age of 4, 10 in a row. And they should be able to hop a distance of 10 centimetres. So that's about 10 centimetres. And then on from a hop is a gallop. Now initially, a child of this age will shuffle sidestep. So that's the start of their gallop. And then they will begin to do the step hop, which is the gallop. Skipping, it follows on from a gallop. So when a child gets good at galloping, it becomes a skip. So they step hop, and that's actually skipping, skip from side to side. A child at the latter end of 4 will start to skip, maybe one side at a time, and then by 5 they'll be able to skip on 2 sides. For a kick, from the age of 2, a child is able to kick a ball, should be able to kick a ball. And in the early years, age group of 3 and 4, their legs should bend backwards with a bent knee, but then go forward with a straight leg. They won't yet have the subtle nuances of being good at putting their balance on one side or the other, but it will be a bent knee back and a straightforward kick. For throwing, children from the age of 2 should be throwing and catching, overhand or underhand. And even from 2, a child should have mastered the overhand skill of throwing. They might release the ball a little bit early or a little bit late. They will find throwing a smaller ball easier. But then catching, they'll find a bigger ball easier to catch. So if you're pairing them up to practice this, it becomes a little bit hard. But for catching, the children will have their arms straight or flexed at the elbow, and they'll usually trap the ball or the beanbag or the balloon in against their body as opposed to catching it independently out there. So throwing and catching is something that really helps them to develop. Hand-eye coordination, crossing the midline, helps their brain develop. With regards to their perception of their body and perception of themselves, they really should be able to identify all the different parts of their body. And songs like head, shoulders, knees and toes would really help with that. They're not good yet with their right and left. and they're not so good at where their bodies are in space yet, but they will be able to identify all parts. For crossing the midline, children this age find, point to your elbow with your other hand. So they find that is completely doable, but point to your knee on the other side, that's a harder maneuver. Or point to your toes on the other side is harder again. So start by crossing the midline onto the opposite elbow, elbow, elbow. And when you find that they've got good at that, they're starting to master the cross patterned movement. Cross onto the knee, and then cross onto the opposite toes, high up in the air, and cross onto the opposite toes. Tracking, this is an eye skill. So have them hold their head still, and to follow a nice colourful pen with a big top would be very good. Can they track a pencil with their eyes? This is a skill that's ingrained in an infant from very small. That's what the primitive reflexes are there to develop. And when there are retained primitive reflexes of often visual tracking and accommodation doesn't really happen. What's their physical fitness levels? A child of this age, 3 and 4, should be able to exercise vigorously. So that's non-stop moving for 15 minutes without stopping. 15 minutes they should be able to run, jump, catch, throw, do star jumps for 15 minutes non-stop. How much should they be moving? Now, a child under the age of 5 should move for at least 3 hours a day. And a minimum time of sitting, minimum sedentary time of 1 hour. So think about that. If a child is sitting to do a task, or even sitting watching TV, 1 hour is the maximum time a child or an adult, 1 hour is the maximum time any of us should be sitting for. But particularly for the under 5s, they should be moving to develop their brain and body for 3 hours of the day. So, how, as early years teachers and practitioners, can you help? So we've made a series of helpful activities for children for this age during the day. So 20 minutes every day to do the simple for the young children. And the warm-up activities for 2 minutes could be twirling ribbons, galloping, hopping, skipping, shaking the body, wriggling, spinning around. I often find that they love following the leader. They're not so good at independent movement, but they'll follow you to do anything. Jumping and hopping patterns, and all the time concentrating on not bumping into each other, because that's really good proprioception development. Not bumping into anyone or anything else. The proprioceptive activities are not bumping into each other, but heavy or light activities. So I do march like a dinosaur. So march as heavy as you can, and then march like a mouse. So while we're doing the marching, which is good practicing cross-patterned movements, I also incorporate this proprioception, heavy and light activities. Buzz like a bee, weaving in and out of each other without touching anybody. That's a really good proprioceptive, no touching anybody or anything. Vestibular activities are anything that is going to help with balance, and that's spinning, rocking, going upside down, being on scooters. They all help with postural reflexes. So that's developing the reflexes which are going to help the body to grow and develop, and to be able to sit and stand and run and crawl and roll when the child is an infant. It helps with auditory perceptual development, with the 2 ears working together. Really helps with balance and with spatial orientation. So good activities for this are a log roll or a pencil roll. So on a mat, the child lies like a pencil and roll along. If you find that the child is good at that, they might want to try a forward roll. Side to side rock, where the head is dropped down over onto one elbow, head is dropped down over to the other elbow. Front to back rock, like rock the boat. It's a great fun game to play with music in the classroom. Helicopter spins, so spinning around and around, and then spin to the other side to stop the dizziness. If you have equipment like this in your school, on a seesaw, swings, but playing ring-a-ring and a rosy around in a circle and then all fall down, can be great fun. We have a developmental activities section of our programme, and the developmental activities are flip-flops. So to start off, flip-flops being same side, and these will be demonstrated to you at the workshop or at the conference. And it starts off on the same side with the hand looking to the head looking to the arm and the leg that's bent, and then it will develop further into the head looking away from the bent arm and leg, but that will be all demonstrated to you. That progresses on to crawling, and crawling can be done when the flip-flops are completed for 3 minutes. Crawling is such a hugely important part of child development, and it's a stage that can be skipped, and then children can have, it can have a huge impact on children afterwards. So once they get good at crawling, you can introduce all sorts of fun things to make it interesting and to keep them getting better and better. So through a tunnel, if you have a tunnel, you can buy them in most shops, they can pop up. Under a parachute, you know, a lovely colourful parachute canopy, which gets them down low. Crawling forwards, crawling backwards, crawling in time to music, like in the Jungle Book and the elephants were bouncing along time to music. A really good one is when they're crawling, to put a beanbag on their back and have them crawl to the end of the mat or 2 mats without dropping the beanbag off their back. Crawling, blowing a tennis ball or blowing a table tennis ball around the room. That's brilliant for their vision, for developing binocular vision. It really helps with concentration, and it really helps with developing the skills for reading and writing, because as a child is crawling, the hand-eye distance is the hand-eye distance for reading and writing. So every time a child is crawling, ask them to look at the leading hand. Look at the leading hand, and always their eyes are going to be trained to look at the opposite. It's crossing the midline for the eyes. So that was the developmental activities. Should happen for 3 minutes. The motor development, we're going to work on one activity each day. So I've given a number of activities, 3 minutes for this. So throwing and catching in pairs. And starting off with balloon volleyball is good because it's very easy. The balloon is light, it goes up in the air, and they think that's great fun. Children love balloons, as you well know. Throwing and catching a beanbag, the heavy weight of the beanbag makes it easier to throw and catch. Then catching a large ball and graduating on to catching a small ball. So that's the throwing option of it. The kicking option, I would recommend kicking the balloon. Kicking a ball in a classroom or school hall may lead to disaster. So kick a balloon to each other and just develop that smooth kicking motion. Balance beams, if you have them, are wonderful because they can walk along the balance beam. It develops their balance and their coordination. Add a beanbag onto the head. When they jump off, you can add in a balloon so that they punch a balloon as they're jumping off. You can add in walking backwards, which is an even better skill to develop, or more advanced developmental skill for them. With the balance beam, they can also practice jumping on and off. They may get to a stage where they can jump over it, but initially certainly jumping on and jumping off with 2 feet, holding on to the balance beam and doing bunny hops. So this is often a good stability for then kicking the legs up for starting off for handstands, so doing bunny hops. They're all the motor developmental activities for 3 minutes. Body perception, Simon Says is great for that. So Simon Says, touch your ear. They don't usually know left and right at this age, so touch your ear and they'll just follow what ear you're touching. Touch your head, touch your knees, and concentrate on doing crossing the midline. Touch your other knee, touch your other knee, touch your other foot, touch your other ear, and use it for crossing the midline, but also for body perception. 2 minutes is great for a perception. And for warm down, I love to use animal sounds. Get the kids sitting on the ground cross-legged, so it's a signal that it's time to warm down, it's time to really take it down a notch, because they really get excited and high when they're doing the activities. We start off roaring like a lion, and when we do roar like a lion, stick out the tongue, stretch it as far as you can, and roar like a lion, like that. Hoot like an owl, 3 times, all of them 3 times. I won't hoot like an owl for you now, but hiss like a snake, and that hissing really gets them down into the body. Gets them very grounded and into their body. Hum like a hummingbird, and often you'll find the kids will start to imitate. Maybe they've seen mum or dad or friends meditating, and they'll and they think that's great fun as well. And the last one I like to do is to sway like a flower in the breeze. And just, if you have some music on, it's nice for them to sway like a flower. It gets them grounded, gets them visualising and picturing something really nice, and into a really nice place, because they're going to be hopping up and starting back to do some tasks in the classroom as well. particularly with the vestibular activities, but in fact with all of them, watch out for state changes. And if you notice a child with a state change, have them stop. And a state change would be a change of facial colour. So either they've gone very pale or extremely red. Reddening of the ears. A change in visual focus. So their eyes start to bounce around, or they tell you that they're dizzy. A change in breathing patterns. They get laboured breath or very quick breath. Dizziness again, and nausea. If you see that, stop. The simple programme for early years can be carried out in a school hall if you have the luxury of having a school hall. If you don't worry. It can be carried out outside, and being on the uneven ground outside is fantastic because it's brilliant for developing tone and posture, having the children get in touch with nature. Being outside is wonderful for children, and if they're guaranteed to get outside every day, that's fantastic. If it's really poor weather and you're in a classroom, push all the desks back. If you've kept the desks, I have already said before, I think it's a great idea to have no desks and chairs for this age group. Have them work on the floor because they will develop brilliant muscle tone, very good posture. They'll start to do naturally the exercises that integrate the reflexes, which often is that cobra posture, a cat-cow, if you know that from yoga posture. Just naturally they would be doing these because they're going in and out of different postures for getting down to do some colouring or getting down to do some Play-Doh or bricks. So working on the floor is immense for helping children to develop physically. So that's it. That is my recommendation for physical literacy for the early years. I hope you're really enjoying the conference today, and apologies I can't be with you, but I hope that I've given you enough information that you can be getting on with it, and you'll go back renewed and invigorated back into the classroom now next week or after the Easter holidays, and get ready to introduce simple to all the early years and get them school ready. So keep moving and keep well. Thank you.